Hello everyone, welcome to the 2016 STP 500 at Martinsville race review, where we recap what went on before the race, during the race, mostly talking about the major highlights, and looking ahead to the next race. So, overall thoughts on the race, I'm going to give this a solid race. I was hoping and thought there was going to be a lot more than what happened from beginning to end, but it wasn't like that at all. And heck, even when Martinsville is on its like down days, the races there are still better than a lot of the other races you'll see on the schedule. So that speaks volumes in my opinion. Overall, I think what I was missing from it overall was just simply the lack of action towards the front. But that was just simply because Kyle Busch had the best car the whole race, and you could see because he quickly got himself into the lead not too long after the start of the race, and then from there on I don't really recall him being farther back than maybe second or third throughout the rest of the race. He just simply had a really good car, and he actually led the most. And the last time a driver led that, and when we look at the amount of laps Kyle Busch led, I think he led like 381 laps, I think. No, 352. The last time a driver led that many laps in one race, Bobby Hamilton back in 1988 April. So it's been a long time since we've seen that dominant of a performance in a race in Martinsville. As far as anyone else who could have challenged Kyle Busch, Keselowski showed speed early in the race, and then up until the last restart, Kenseth looked pretty strong. It looked like Kenseth actually could have taken. It looked like Kenseth actually could have passed Kyle Busch late in the race had the last caution had come out. Kevin Harvick also showed flashes of brilliance. Led, I think, the second most amount of laps, but for the most part, it was Kyle Busch was down it pretty much from almost start to finish, and it paid off. I guess I was also expecting a lot more action, as it was actually one of the more cleaner Martinsville races in recent memory. Just only 8 cautions, the biggest amount of cautions since this race back in 4 years ago. So it was definitely clean, but I actually kind of like that. It was a nice change in my opinion. And certainly, as we look ahead to Texas, and I'll talk about more later on in this race review, there were some drivers that I got some good finishes, and some of them really needed some good finishes. Yeah, I think it's not time to get into the major highlights we're talking about, and what I think is going to be talked a lot about to Texas. In my opinion, there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about between Fontana and Martinsville, but I think there are definitely a couple of notable things. First of all, there are reports and rumors of new manufacturers entering the sport. About 2 weeks ago, Brian France, the CEO of NASCAR, said that there's interest from other manufacturers, and then all of a sudden, not too long after that, there are rumors of Audi coming to NASCAR. And I think, regardless of what manufacturer comes, if there are new manufacturers actually interested in NASCAR, I think it'd be good for the sport. Excuse me. And then this was a rumor for a few days. 2007 Formula One champion Kimi Räikkönen, or however you pronounce that, could be coming to NASCAR in 2017. I doubt that this will happen, but who knows? It might be something we're watching, worth looking out for as the year goes on. And then on March 24th, 2016, fines were given out to Dan Patrick and Kyle Busch. Patrick for walking towards the racetrack. At Fontana, that's a no-no. And this has been a rule since about the week after the Kevin Ward Jr. tragedy. Kyle Busch was fined for not for failing his media obligations in the Xfinity race. He was not penalized whatsoever for his comment about fixing races during that race. And if I'm not going to tell you the whole story, so you should go look it up yourself. Cole Pearn was not penalized for his tweet. And his tweet, which then got deleted, was, I guess look out, I can't see through his squinty douchey eyes. I'm glad he wasn't fined for that. That would just be wrong, limiting free speech, and saying this for Kyle Busch on his fixing racist comment. We don't need to censor tweets or radio chat, or in my opinion, they should police themselves. And last note that is worth mentioning is, for the first time since the Daytona 500, we had 40 cars. Reed Sorensen driving a second premium motorsports car, number 55, and interestingly, the font of 55 looked exactly like, looked a lot like, or exactly like the 55 that Michael Waltrip Racing had the past couple years. And so I wonder if it's a leftover Michael Waltrip Racing car. And I think overall, like, short tracks tend to actually have bigger fields, but let's obviously not forget that this track is not too far away from from where many of the teams are in North Carolina. And I guess as far as like Friday and Saturday, Brian Vickers was fastest in opening practice. I think they were in this practice. No, it wasn't this practice. I think it was qualifying, or maybe I'm wrong. Trevor Baynes wheel hopped turn number 1, 2, and hit the wall. Logano wins his third consecutive pull at Martinsville, dating back to last year in the spring. And we had some very interesting names that start up front that haven't really been fast so far this season. Casey Kane, Tony Stewart, Paul Menard, Ryan Newman, AJ Albany are all starting 2nd through 6th. And then Kane was fastest in second practice, and then Kyle Larson, who has struggled in the Martinsville in the past, was fastest in happy hour. And that's pretty much all the previous notes I have. We saw many comers and goers pretty much throughout the entire race. For example, I mentioned earlier that Brad Keselowski was one of Kyle Busch's early challengers. Well, after the first caution came out and everyone came down from the road, he got caught speeding and was put at the tail end of the lap, and it took him about 100 laps later to finally get into the top 10, and then many more laps to get inside the top 5. An example of a goer was Joe Logano, who was on the pole, led the opening laps, and about on lap 70 or 80 or somewhere around that, he actually fell off the lead lap. So we saw lots of comers and goers, but they always make for very interesting races, because sometimes you won't know who is going to be up there right until the very end. So that's my explanation for that. And another example of that was Jimmy Johnson. He had a poor qualifying position, started outside the top 20. Kevin Harvick started outside the top 15, but they got themselves towards the front. Drivers like Casey Kane started second and fell back, and it was once again an very disappointing performance for Casey Kane. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Made contact with David Reagan on lap number 5. Okay, let me refix that. It was after the second caution that Keselowski got caught speeding out. The first caution, my bad. So on lap number 5, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Made contact with David Reagan. That caused his tire to go flat. He spun, went all out down, and took him probably about over 100. It took him about 300 laps to finally get back on the lead lap. He was inside the top 5, top 10 late in the race, and then all of a sudden he fell back on the final restart. So he was both a comer and a goer. Carl Edwards pretty much had the same thing. Fell back down early in the race. It took a long time for him to finally get back on the lead lap, and he got a good finish out of it. So comers and goers were, like I said, comers and goers pretty much happen from beginning to end, but they always make for very interesting races. Mike Joy, Darrell Waltrip, and Jeff Gordon, I don't think brought this up. Maybe enough. I think they mentioned it at least one time early in the race, but overall, one thing that I think did have a significant effect on the race was the lack of rubber being put down on the track, and that was mostly due to the cold temperatures. I mean, I think they were in like the 50s and 60s that today in Martinsville, and because it was so cold, no rubber was being put down the racetrack, especially in the corners, the concrete corners, and that caused a lot of drivers to kind of lose control. I think it just failed to produce a second groove on this track. Granted, Martinsville has always been a one groove track for as long as it's been around, which as far as I know. But the fact that it was rubber free did make for a more interesting race, and I think an unexpected challenge for the drivers and teams. The winner for the BS moment of the race has to go to this, and this brought out, I think it was the 5th caution. And what happened is that Josh Wise in that black unsponsored number 30 car, this brought out caution number 5. He abruptly stopped ahead of, well, what happened was, let me do that again. So he abruptly just turned right and slowed down. But the thing is, he didn't hit the wall, and he got down to the fine. He did not drop any debris whatsoever on the racetrack, and yet that was somehow a caution. And what made it worse was that the last caution of the race, Jamie McMurray, he cut down a left rear tire all the way in turns 3 and 4. I don't know if he dropped 3 or anything like that, but the thing is, he went down the front stretch and then spun in turns 1 and 2, and yet the caution was not thrown until about he came to a complete stop. So that didn't really help the situation, and it's one of the reasons why conspiracy theorists are strong in numbers in NASCAR. For example, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was on the lead lap. Not on the lead lap. He was a lap down, and this gave him the free pass. So overall, a very unnecessary caution. And like I said, the Jamie McMurray caution, the Jamie McMurray spin, which brought the pound caution, did not make things. It just made things worse. And so this takes the cake for BS moment of the race. Every time we get to Martinsville, there's always going to be some talk about like who's going to be upset. But really, overall, I don't really recall seeing any like rivalries being formed, unless you consider Paul Menard and Austin Dillon, who bumped each other out of the way and made contact many times in the second half of the race. But yeah, after the race was over, they were shaking hands and kind of having a good time about it. I wonder if things. I have a feeling things would likely be different if they weren't teammates, but I think it did make for. I think it is one of the top storylines, to say the least, to have teammates going at it and like bumping each other out of the way and embracing like their enemies, kind of. This is based on what I can remember. But as far as like who also could be upset, it disappointed. There were definitely, I think there were a couple of drivers that I think were very disappointed with their finishes. For example, and the biggest one out there is Matt Kenseth. When he ran like top 5, like about like 90% of the race, and yet on the final restart with just 10 laps to go, he goes from second to 15th. He was just stuck on the outside. The outside just simply sucks at Martinsville, and it's been like that, But like I said, pretty much since the track has been around. Same goes for Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick. They finished 13th and 17th. So rough finishes for drivers that spent most of the day inside the top 5, top 10. Logano was also kind of a disappointment. I expected him to be a contender, but really outside of Vegas, Logano has kind of been quiet. He's running. Logano is not. He's not performing bad this season. He's 15 points right now, but he's just kind of been quiet, as opposed to last year. But who knows? Maybe he'll start turning things around and getting wins left and right. As far as any of the drivers that might be disappointed, I think Johnson is likely going to be a little disappointed because he had a car that could have finished like top 3, but got a 9th place finish. But it's not a bad performance overall. And when I look at other drivers that finished well, it was also not a good day for none of the rookies really performed that great. The highest finishing rookie was Ryan Blaney, the last car finishing on the lead lap in 19. Chase Elliott finished 20th, a lap down. Other rookies: Brian Scott 26, Chris Buescher finished 33rd. Jeffrey Earnhardt was not in this race. No, it wasn't. That was Joey Gase in the 32 car. Yeah, Martinsville is so not is a track that is definitely not kind to rookies most of the time. Another thing that I like about Martinsville is that outside of the circuit points of the Daytona Talladega and sometimes the road courses, it provides the best chance to see underdogs get great finishes and on a rare occasion win. And Martinsville this time around certainly did not disappoint. I mean, look at outside of Cal finishing first, look at the top 10. We had AJ Allmendinger finishing second, but this was not a total fluke. He qualified what? Yeah, he qualified like 6 and was inside the top 5, top 10 pretty much throughout the majority of the day. I actually think that if the final restart was say like 30 laps to go, who knows? He actually did have his car was better on the long run, so maybe he could have been able to actually chase down and pass Kyle Busch for the win. And I was so rooting for him on that final restart. Third place, Kyle Larson finally gets a good finish at Martinsville. Entering this race, Kyle Larson said that Martinsville was one of his worst tracks, and actually ran the truck race the day before yesterday, just to get more experience, and I think it paid off. He got a 3rd place finish, ran top 5, top 10 most of the day, and for him and for his season so far, which has been struggling up to this point, it was a much need. It was a really good finish that was needed. Austin Dillon gets his second top 5. And how many top 5s did he get the previous 2 seasons? 1 in 2014 and 1 in 2015. So, yeah, he's definitely, in my opinion, the breakout of the year and the most improved driver of the year so far. Austin Dillon finishes 4th. Brian Vickers was fast for practice, good in qualifying. In the race, he was kind of a little disappointing to me, but nevertheless, he still finished 7th. Good finish for him. If the race was actually one lap less, he actually would have got a top 5. And how about Paul Menard, who actually passed Logano for the first lead change in the race, and was still able to hold on to a spot into the top 10 in 8th position. So good runs for the drivers that I just mentioned, and I guess outside of that, I might as well also give shout outs to I might as well give a shout out to Greg Biffle, who's been struggling this season and comes home with his best finish of the season so far in 12th. So overall, underdogs score big at Martinsville. So let's wrap up and look ahead to Texas. So I guess some notes I didn't touch on earlier. Kyle Busch. I could have said this really after Phoenix or so, but Kyle Busch is definitely not slowing down at all. If Kyle Busch did not have that tire failure at Fontana 2 weeks ago, I think that this would have been like his 10th consecutive top 5 finish. So he's been very strong and looking like a championship contender. But it'll be interesting to see how long this dominance will last, and I wonder when it will likely slow down. And also with Kyle Busch, when you hear Martinsville in the Cup Series, there's now only 3 tracks he has not won at in this Cup Series: Charlotte, in Kansas, and Pocono. But he does have wins at these tracks in the lower division, so we definitely can get it done. And because all 3 of these tracks host 2 races, I think that Kyle Busch definitely has a good shot of winning. At winning at those 2 tracks. If he does do that, he will become the first driver to win at every track he's competed on in the modern era of NASCAR. Something that Jeff Gordon couldn't do. He was 1 short. Jimmy Johnson hasn't done. Kevin Harvick hasn't done. Matt Kenseth hasn't done. No one else. But Kyle Busch, I think, is the closest, and I think he is the most capable of doing it. Looking ahead to let me deconsor here. This race is once again another one of those reminders on why I wish that there were more short tracks on the schedule, but they locked the schedule last year in the fall, so no new tracks from 2016 to 2020, unfortunately. But thankfully we have the low downwards package for now, and now we're gonna see the low downwards package in action at Texas, which I think I'm kind of looking forward to this race. I haven't really enjoyed Texas races in the past, and I still wish it did not have 2 races. But I think it could likely be a good one. You know, tire wear is starting to become a big thing at the track now, and I think it's going to make the race a lot like Atlanta or Fontana. So I think it has the potential to be a good race. As far as who can win, well, in recent years it's been Jimmy Johnson. He last year in this race he got his first spring Texas victory. He won in the fall. So I think Jimmy Johnson is likely a favorite. But I would watch out for the Penske teammates. I think that it could be another Penske domination weekend. Brett Keselowski and Logano have had success at Texas before. For example, last fall, Brett Keselowski at 312 laps. It was so close to victory. Logano won the spring race 2 years ago. So I think watch out for those two drivers. Will we see any surprises? For some reason, to me, when it comes for a possible surprise for like a top 5 or so, for some reason, like Ryan Blaney is like in my head for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, this isn't a track that he's done best at in the World 2 Series, but I think he could be a good sleeper pick for Texas, in my opinion. But anyway, that's kind of really all I really have to say. So I would like to thank you all for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and bye.